I'm honored to be here with such a great panel of individual leaders in the industry and the world of digital. So I'm looking forward to the next 45 minutes. We've got a few questions to walk through. Some I'm going to address to each individually, and then others to the whole group. The first one is addressed to everybody, and we'll just go in order. Maybe Giacomo can lead the way, but it's kind of a silly question given we're at a digital conference. But what does digital transformation mean to each of your companies? When you hear those words, what does that mean? Giacomo, you want to go first, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Not an easy question. I mean, maybe silly, but pretty with a huge implication. Digital transformation, to me, if I have to ask to my colleague in my company, probably the first thing is resound something like simplifying the way we do it, trying to find a way to speed up the things we do it, and especially find new solution and new approaches to what we do it. Thinking, for example, to the everything that could be brought by artificial intelligence or advanced analytics or even other digital solutions. So in a nutshell, digital transformation, at least for us, is not, let me say, a revolution in the business. That is business, but it's part embedded in the business in changing the way business does things to what we are used to do in the upstream, for example, in the traditional operation, but even looking for new solution in our energy transition. So digital is part of the business, doing things more simpler, more faster, in different way, in a more efficient way.
Thank you, Giacomo. Michael, you want to take a crack at that same question, please?
Yeah, definitely. I think faster and smarter is all, right at the core. Events are arriving at many different velocities, and users want to consume, analyses at many different frequencies. So it's I see the digital transformation. All data is beginning as a real-time event, and so integrating data on the event stream and unifying data that's at rest versus in motion, to do analytics as data accumulate, and to get insights to take action, before the insights go stale. So it's really kind of speeding up and getting smarter as well. And if you can reduce the time from an event to getting data ready for analysis, to completing analysis, to making a decision, taking an action, you can really get ahead and generate, millions of dollars or euros of value. And we do see that everywhere upstream, from exploration to reservoir characterization, drilling completions, production surveillance, planning, scheduling. All of those tasks do benefit from just going faster and working with the event stream and the at-rest data to help to get insights and make decisions on a timely basis. So I pretty much, I think, resonate with Giacomo's comments there at a little more technical level.
Thank you, Michael. Lee, I hate to have you come on last, because you've heard two very good explanations, but I'll leave the last one up to you.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Very similar, to be honest. And those that have heard me kind of talk before, I think for me, it's about getting the right data in the right hands at the right time. So it's quite simple in that sense. And I think our belief is if we do that, then it will get better outcomes. But I think making sure that when we do introduce kind of digital and data software, that it is focused on better business outcomes is the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, gentlemen. The next question I'm going to address to all of you as well, because it seems to me we've been on this journey for a number of years. And years ago, we had clients that kind of, to quote an expression, tried to boil the ocean because they weren't sure what problem they were trying to address and where the biggest opportunity was to bring digital into their organization. But it looks like we've turned the corner on all that. And we've now got business problems we've identified where we know we have a challenge that we can improve. Can you give me one example of digital transformation in action in each of your companies? Lee, I'll let you go first to that one, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. Maybe I'll start with kind of a few seconds just in terms of what has changed since then. So I think versus a couple of years ago, I think we're definitely thinking more integrated. So I think the way we thought about a few years ago, it was more kind of point solutions and just trying to help individuals. I think what I think we're doing now is we've laid the foundations that we needed, and we've been able to be a bit more sophisticated in how kind of the end users experience that. So one recent example that springs to mind is when it comes to our use of predictive maintenance and predictive analytics, we've been successful in deploying that in the last couple of years in Shell, and we've had partnerships with the likes of C3 and Kongsberg. I think where we're getting more sophisticated now is we're able to say, well, not only having that point solution working, but what does that mean for the workflow? And so we've been able to say, well, there may be 2 or 3 different digital solutions that have to interact with each other. And again, a recent example where we've triggered the use of predictive maintenance, and we can better understand when compressors will fail, for example. But now we're starting to say, and if we do identify a failure, is our downstream supply chain of that failure digitalized as well to be able to respond? So there's much more that value chain thinking emerging, and it's happening more quickly.
Excellent. Giacomo, you want to answer the same question, please, if you don't mind?
Yep. Let me say, I would say that now, comparing to 2 years ago, the point is that digital has proven to bring good results. So business and our business colleague knows the value now of digital, and therefore they ask solution and digital solution, even in a small, practical, tiny things. So they know better the value of digital. Even advanced analytics has proven result and is a proven field. There is no more anyone, I would say, that is skeptical. Business six for digital solution and our digital support. And therefore, the key point to us is focus, because the risk is that we engage with several things. And unfortunately, I mean, as everyone, I guess, we have limited resources. So the point now, compared to the past, is to identify the most relevant solution and focus on few relevant solutions.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I think what's different this time around is just the maturity and battle-worn robustness of the software systems that's been earned through multiple deployments. And Lee mentioned some, and Giacomo too, but yeah, we've been around the block, at TIBCO with our Spotfire and other technologies, for many years, decades, actually. Also with our, ecosystem of partners and, lots of deployments that we've been able to learn from, I guess. And so it's the software gets more proven at scale with data management, analytics, and data science, being pretty solid. And also the companies we work with have made, DevOps investments, which, haven't been made until recent years. So, you're seeing now a real body of lots of companies using at least our software and Spotfire and integration and other software to really put in place systems that are, extending equipment life, keep systems running, enhance production, across different forms of artificial lift systems, whether it's, submersible pumps, beam pumps, gas lift injection systems. You're just getting a lot more a body of work that's emerged over the last decade that we've been building on. So that's what I think is different. And, the extreme value that's starting to get generated, we just had our annual conference actually at TIBCO, and the folks like at Hess and Birchcliff and Oxy, Petrobras, the folks at Hunt Oil doing remarkable things in real-time drilling, completions, that whole notion of acting more on the data that's coming through, real-time modeling of, state and bitware and so on, and, keeping a handle on field operations. And Lee mentioned predictive maintenance. Yeah, I think, we're getting data from whether it's, ESPs or beam pumps or whatever, just having a multi sort of check-in point per day. It's like a digital nervous system that you've got now that you're maintaining on your field-based assets that you can get data from and take action, the same day. And you can kind of get in front of failure points and the savings that you get from keeping systems running and avoiding downtime and getting the most out of your equipment, to add on to Lee's example. It's quite amazing the extent of the savings. And now we've had folks that have been deploying systems like that on our software for 5-10 years. And it's just become part of the internal operations of the company. And I think that's the maturity. And so I mentioned battle-worn scars that we have over these last years is really, I think, a big difference from 5 years ago.
Thank you. One of the things that we've seen is there's so much data. We've always had tons of data in our industry, and things like sensors and measurement have come down so much. So where we didn't have data, it's now relatively cheap and easy to get, which allows us to bring the whole digital world into a different scalability and different opportunity areas, whether it be compression or downhole, no matter what it is. So it's amazing the inroads we made in the last 2 to 3 years, and particularly from our perspective.
Mhm.
We're going to shift gears a little bit because energy transition takes up a lot of conversation in every company. I don't care whether you're a small private company in an exploration production, or whether you're an integrated major, or whether you're on the service company side. It is a path that everyone's on to varying degrees. And from our perspective, digital has to play a major component in it. So I'd just like to get your all feeling as it relates to the intersection between digital and the energy transition. And maybe, Michael, we can get you to lead off this time. A couple minutes on that would be great.
You know, one thing that's been remarkable to me is we've gotten involved in sustainable energy initiatives, you know, carbon capture, storage, electrification. You know, many of the use cases and technologies are very similar to upstream energy operations. You know, we've been working with the folks on the Gorgon project in Northern Australia, and you know, you're injecting CO2, you know, kilometers underneath the surface of the Earth. But, you know, it's the same sort of technologies. You know, those technologies have sensors on them from deep sea equipment. You know, we are monitoring those sensors to, you know, check on the effectiveness of the equipment and, you know, on the operation. And we're looking for patterns in, you know, on event type data that are indicative of problems. So we're still doing anomaly detection. We're still getting data from sensors. You know, the data from the deep sea sensor equipment is somewhat similar to getting data from an electrical submersible pump, you know, on land. You're monitoring rigs, you're monitoring assets, you're doing, you know, anomaly detection with some of the similar methods that we use for artificial lift systems, you know, things like measuring distance to the closest centroid in multivariate data. And then you're doing alerting when, you know, when there's an anomaly. So it's in some ways the new sustainable initiatives like around carbon capture share from a data perspective many of the same traits as the traditional upstream type technologies. And you know, it's just remarkable. And I think also, you know, we do quite a lot of work with wind turbine companies, and that's even more. I mean, rather than getting, you know, 10, 20 measurements, we're getting 1,000 measurements per turbine per minute, and monitoring tens of thousands of turbines, you know, around the globe. So, you know, if anything, the new transition or new renewables and things like carbon capture are like traditional upstream, you know, artificial lift, but more so. There's more data. There's coming faster. It's but yeah, I guess overall my comment is just the remarkable similarity of the sorts of data analytics problems that we're getting with those new technologies as that we've, you know, been working on for the last 10 years in traditional artificial lift.
Thanks, Michael. Lee, would you like to add yours and Shell's perspective to this one as well?
Yeah, thanks. Very similar in the sense that if you think of our traditional kind of upstream skill set, whether it's in exploration or subsurface development, very similar skills that are transferable to some of the new clean tech technologies such as CCS, and so that's actively ongoing. There's also kind of some less obvious things that we've equally found, again, sort of helping both ways. So we've clearly seen some AI algorithms that started off trying to optimize some upstream activities that we've actually found work equally well in some of our customer facing businesses, so to actually be more efficient in other parts of our value chain. So definitely kind of playing kind of more kind of digital sort of transferability of skills. The other thing that again is kind of emerging is the whole kind of combination of robotics and AI. So if I think about my own involvement in CCS started 12, 13 years ago when I was kind of more of a project engineer. And at that point, actually just being able to monitor and quantify existing greenhouse gas emissions were a challenge. I think if you look at what's available now, combining sort of real-time satellites, robotics, drones, with the ability to kind of overlay some of those IR type of readings with AI, it is just giving us much better ability to understand what our baseline is first, and then being able to then link it back to some of our reduction technologies. I guess I can talk a lot about it, but even within Shell, I don't think we've leveraged it as much as we hope to going forward. I think it's an area that you can really see it starting to build up. And I had a call only a couple of weeks ago with our own kind of robotics guys, and clearly more we can do. I mean, the technology is not the issue anymore. It's kind of more just getting it into the right hands and getting the funding and the support to get it out into the key assets.
Thank you, Lee. Giacomo, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, energy transition is definitely our strategy. Therefore, I mean, digital support this strategy. And I can tell you what we do to support this relevant and new strategy. Basically, I would say 4 to 5 points. The first one, we have launched a pretty comprehensive and integrated program on energy efficiency with the aim to increase the energy efficiency and so reduce the emission in every single operation we traditionally do. So the goal is rethink what we do in terms of optimizing the energy efficiency. Again, from supply to industrial operation, every single thing is a pretty broad one. We found solution in some areas. We are still seeking solution in other areas. The second, we're going into a lower margin business. Therefore, we have launched what we have called Any Document Intelligence. It's a 3-year program with in-house made solution to bring to zero every single document-based activity. Tiny things if you want, but a radical change in the way we work in order to reallocate better our resource, avoiding documental task. The third, we started to cooperate more, I would say, first of all, and in a different way with our R&D department. Especially, we give a big contribution thanks to our data scientist team in order to embed the data science into the traditional research in order to speed up the research solution. Fourth, we see interesting new frontier for engineering, given that the new plant has to born digitally native, and therefore there are very interesting fields for engineering in order to do the project management, design, engineer of those plants. And finally, there are areas like carbon capture, like forestry, like even the renewable. I'm thinking of, for example, wind, where we are strengthening our open innovation activity and partnership in order to find out new solutions. These are basically, I would say, the fifth area that we are focusing at the moment.
Excellent.
It's great
Thank
to
you,
hear
Brian.
that you've got the data scientists in focus there, Giacomo. I mean, that's been an area of rapid growth for our company. It's just, data science just seems to be everywhere these days. It's,
yeah, you're right. Even inside this one.
So it's, actually, I run our data science team. We've been super busy, and it's really fascinating. Like I say, that some of the techniques for anomaly detection or, time series analysis or, multivariate analysis for finding, outliers and so on. The techniques can cross-fertilize across the use cases really nicely. And sometimes you'll get a real insight from, a technique that you used in a quite different application, applying it to a new application. So data scientists are having a lot of fun these days, applying their work to a lot of different use cases.
Even too much, let me say. The point is there are scarce resources. So.
You've got a lot of data science activity too, right? I know I've been doing some work with Dan and others there.
They're actually having fun across multiple industries, because if you look what's happening in healthcare and some of the breakthroughs in the healthcare front and others, it's all around using data and applying digital skills and analytics to it. So we're seeing it, and I think that's one of the big advantages we have this time is we don't need to reinvent the wheel ourselves only. There's others out there that are deploying different techniques and different capabilities that we can actually bring to our space, which brings me to my next question. And Lee, maybe I'll start off with you. And that is, it appears as though we're partnering a lot better than we did in the past as we go down this digital journey. What is yours and Shell's perspective on that?
Yeah, I agree. It's improving, and I think it only needs to go one way from now. So I think the partnerships will continue to improve. I think if I look at my own experience, I think we've gone from seeing kind of digital almost as a threat and kind of being a bit more inward looking. So we, as Michael said, we have a strong kind of in-house capability now. So we have several hundred data scientists. We have a good real kind of core of the tech kind of knowledge. But I think that the more we see this, again, to some of the earlier points, we as an individual company can't keep up. So just the speed of change, the amount of tech out there, I think, but partnership is a must, and not just for a company like Shell, I'd say, but in general. I also think the willingness to collaborate, I think it is a step up as well. I think we're still trying to figure out, I guess, a couple of things. One is, as an IOC, it can be overwhelming at times. So I've never been so, and if I offend anyone, please, but I've never been so popular on LinkedIn as I have in this role in the last kind of 6 to 7 months, that you get lots of kind of requests to kind of collaborate and engage. And I think a big part of in my issues that actually I don't know what I don't know, and so actually trying to get a feel out there and seeing what's possible, it's a big part of the job. But it's not easy to kind of truly say whether we're kind of leveraging the partnerships as much as we'd like. And I think that the second thing I'd say is actually you're seeing kind of the startings of the broader proper kind of collaboration setup. So whether it's SDU, whether it's the OpenAI Energy Initiative that Shell and others are part of, I think just more and more trying to create more of a collaborative kind of AI-driven marketplace is something that I think we're kind of putting our feet firmly in, just because we realize we ourselves can't lead by ourselves. And also I think that given the scale of the change, it's not obvious who is going to be the leader in this point as an individual company. So yeah. Just collaboration is definitely the way forward for me. And it's right. And the final thing I'd say, it's challenging our culture as well. I think just to be clear, I think for companies like Shell, where we've got a very proud kind of past of strong R&D and actually developing our own tech, actually kind of having that more humble mindset and collaborating. Yeah, I mean, not everyone is comfortable with it yet, but we're getting there.
That actually brings me to my next question that I wanted to ask Giacomo and Michael, and that is, as you implement digital changes, what is the biggest roadblock? Is it cultural? Is it process? Is it people? Is it technology development? How would you characterize it? Maybe Giacomo, you can go first to answer that.
Definitely, I would say definitely 100% cultural. I mean, of course, there are constraints in terms of budget, investment. Of course, this is part of the game in every game you play. But culturally speaking, back to what I was saying at the beginning, I was saying agility, to be smart, to be quick, to be agile. This is not still yet part of our culture. So we are used to complex things, doing things that are simple in a complex way. We have complex processes, we have complex interaction, we have complex partnership. And all this complexity, bringing down all this complexity and trying to still, I mean, this kind of mindset where everything is easy is not, this is the big, I think, main constraint. The second one, back to what I was saying even before, it's very important to be focused. I mean, everyone now wants, we were talking before, data science. I'm happy about that, but data science are scarce. So we need to do things where it's relevant and needed. So I would say focus and simplicity are the main constraint.
Okay, Michael, you want to add to that? Please.
Yeah, let me just add to both the previous comments. I think firstly on the partnership front, it's just exploded. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we've got this massive partnership with Schlumberger with our analytics and data management technologies as part of their Delphi platform, which is really kind of going ahead leaps and bounds. The whole OSDU initiative that we're jumped in with 2 feet into that, and partnering with a whole bunch of people around that. Whether, our partnership with IHS and Bowen Cybertech, it's like the partnerships have exploded the last few years from our perspective. And I think it's just a lot of collaboration going on. And, the OSDU project helps, obviously, because we just, you're on interacting with a bunch of different people from a bunch of different companies and the whole ecosystem of folks trying to collaborate. We're collaborating with our competitors in a lot of our accounts. It's really has changed a lot the last few years, I think. And I think OSDU has been a bit of a, jump start, to that. In terms of the challenges, I feel like at least across our customer base, it's realizing and documenting the value generation in a way that, can be proven to the exec team and so on quickly. The ability, the successful folks, think big, but start small and then scale fast. That's, I think, the success criteria that I've seen. And, you want to get, some quick wins, show the early benefit, the near-term impact. At the same time, you want to be laying the data and analytics pipe, to set up a lab for iterative development and tie into your existing data stores and, provide insights every couple of weeks to keep the execs engaged. And, if you run into roadblocks, well, it doesn't mean no, it means find another way, run some quick cycles, iterate. Folks who are passionate and persistent and focused, have a sense of urgency. Those are the projects that, that really work. And also, I find a skill that some successful projects have is, being able to enlist others on your journey, right? So you might, find someone who can go get you some data, like, covert way sometimes, entrepreneurial evangelists and, radical data scientists and, take no prisoner project managers and, subject matter experts and, visionary sponsors, enlightened partners. These are all kind of things that can make a project successful. But the one common theme I've seen is that, the ability to prove value quickly and to gain consistently, that sort of thing that I think is in common with the successful projects. And I think the ones that aren't successful don't do that very well. They kind of plod along and without proving themselves as they go forward, I guess.
Thank you, Michael. Lee, you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's just so Michael he touched on for me what's an important topic. When we talk about partnerships, when I first came into the space a couple of years ago, a lot of it was around kind of partnerships between IOC or an operator with a vendor. And I think that the more and more I'm seeing actually partnerships are now happening kind of through traditional competitors. So for example, as an IOC, we're seeing better collaboration between kind of vendors with each other now, which is making our life kind of more effective, and vice versa and things like the OSDO. So I think again, I guess when I talk about partnership, please don't just look to companies like Shell or the operators. For me, the real kind of game changer is when we see, to Michael's point, where you see kind of multiple vendors working together to make the interfaces smoother when we actually come and use it. It's really powerful when we see that. Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that, Lee, because it's like we end up partnering with people that we're usually competing with, and it's the whole cloud landscape too, right? So we're partnering with AWS and Microsoft and Google, depending on our customers, whatever cloud vendor journey they're on. So at our recent conference, we had AWS and Cepsa and Paravita were on our OSDU panel. So there's a little ecosystem going on there. And then we had, Petrobras that we're working with in combination with some OSDU work that they're doing.
You start to see clusters forming together.
Yeah, there's these little clusters that, often around a cloud vendor, but not necessarily. But you're sort of seeing, different technologies that are sort of coming together along with different companies who are also partnering around the use cases. It's really kind of a changed landscape these last few years, from my perspective.
It is the one thing that gives me hope of our ability to navigate the energy transition. Is we're going to have to partner differently and actually move faster and move more thoughtfully but faster through our organizations. We're an industry that partners and competes with each other, which makes us very unique. Right. And now we have an opportunity to unlock some of that code and do things better and more efficiently. I can tell you from our perspective, there's still too many silos, too much bureaucracy. Things are just taking way too long to get stuff done. And digital is to me an enabler to allow some of those boundaries to come down, because through all the restructuring we've done, that's not the answer. It's about making decisions across an organization instead of up one organization and down the other one. So digital is going to play a meaningful role, I think, in allowing that to happen. Historically, so the supply chain partners have played a major role in technology, innovation, and that includes digital. That could be a Schlumberger, that could be a Halliburton, that could be a Tibco, whoever it is, has played a major role in the breakthroughs. And one of the challenges we see right now is there's been so much downsizing and organizational flux in our industry with COVID and the reduced commodity price, that we're seeing a gap in human capability, and where that's going to come from. I'd like to just get your all perspective on talent as you look across the industry as it relates to digital. I'm not suggesting you step out of the digital space, but as it relates to digital. Lee, you want to take the first stab at that one, please?
Yeah, sure. So I've definitely kind of experienced in two things. So one is our existing talent, who've in some cases been with us for 20, 30 years. And so I think that there's definitely a concerted effort to try to bring our existing kind of talent up the learning curve in the digital space. I think what we found is that the traditional skill sets like reservoir engineering, great basis anyway to fall into or to improve the data science. So that's kind of one thing. And I think that the challenge is how can we credibly upskill our existing staff in order to be competitive in the broader marketplace for the digital space. And I think we've had some success, but still hope to do more in that. And then there's a much broader topic on how can we attract the right talent for companies like ourselves, given the energy transition. And again, I think that's a bit down to how we show up and whether we meet society's expectations. Because I think without going into kind of all the news, I mean, everyone knows kind of what's happening with the industry. And I think it's fair to say, even versus when I joined the industry 15, 20 years ago, we're not as attractive as we were as an industry. And I think if we can credibly offer people a way to bring digital, but into kind of a meaningful kind of societal change, like climate change and any transition, then I think that there is a space to offer that. But it's down to companies like Shell to make that a credible career for people. And again, I think depending where you are in the world, I think we definitely see parts of Western Europe where I'm based in currently, we struggle to do that more than say in parts of Asia, where just because we're still seen as a strong kind of up and coming job provider. So I think just being adaptable across the globe is an important one.
Yeah. Giacomo, you want to add to this topic, please?
Just a quick view. I think, technical knowledge still matter. Deep industry knowledge still matter. Definitely, digital or not digital. The point of digital is that less and less we will be able to rely to a sort of one-stop shop approach. So the point of digital to me is to build bridges, to be more able to collaborate, cooperate. And so mixing those different perspectives, the deep technical knowledge and tradition with the arising digital competencies. So what I think we need to do better, if I'm talking for E&I, is to merge these different perspectives, to be able to dialogue in a better way. And the past was more based on single player, big contracts. This is not what I see in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Michael, you want to add something to this too?
Yeah, no, look, I just agree in spades, especially with what Giacomo was just saying, and Lee also. I mean, we have some old timers who just have great knowledge and battle school, won through different projects over the years that bring a lot to the table. By the same token, people that I'm hiring right out of college, whether good programs, whether it's Carnegie Mellon or wherever, just bring so much to the table. I mean, my daughter is learning Python in high school, and it's like you bring together someone who's coming out of an innovative program and pair them up with someone who has great subject matter knowledge, has been working on the team for a long time. That's really a winning combination that we found, at least. And yeah, that freshness that someone brings, right out of college with lots of technical knowledge and eager to apply that, and with someone who's, applied that knowledge over the years in many different interesting situations. Really, I think really powerful combinations can be brought to bear there, adding to what Giacomo and Lee was saying.
Thank you.
And can I just, sorry to jump in, but I think again, building on what Michael said, you touched on, when we talk about talent, we often talk about kind of the en masse, but I wouldn't underestimate the role of leadership in this as well. And I think we sometimes underestimate a senior leader, whether it's an executive vice president in a company like Shell or whether it's a CEO of midsize. A lot of these people don't have huge amount of digital savviness themselves, and we're suddenly expecting them to help make major decisions. So I think that the talent pieces is as much about upskilling our own leaders, which again we've been trying to do in some areas successfully, some areas not. But yeah, the talent is. Don't underestimate how our senior leaders sometimes feel a bit vulnerable themselves, and we need to spend a bit of time sort of upskilling them.
Yeah,
I think that's a great point. Many of our clients are starting to pursue commercialization of their technologies outside of the walls of, say, a Shell or an E&I. In other words, developing solutions that really work well for your company, and then saying, well, maybe this can be a commercial product in its own right. And either we partner with somebody or we look at other means. We've got an offshore company, US, we've got an onshore company, US, and we have a mining company that just within our small portfolio that are now feel like they're far enough advanced down some of the change programs that they have something to offer outside of the walls of their own organization from a commercial product. Maybe we could just touch on that for a minute. Michael, maybe you could start, since that's the world you live in.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like we do business like from all the way from brand new startups all the way to companies like E&I and Shell. It's like and everything in between. And you see something people get excited about in a big company, and how can they make that matter to a broader set of companies. I'm seeing the willingness to contribute from big companies to the broader ecosystem in the energy sector has been remarkable. I mean, I must say, various things I've spoken about today, but Shell's ability to step up with OSDU, Schlumberger as well. I mentioned the work we're doing with Petrobras, and we're kind of open sourcing a lot of that. There's this around the globe, we're seeing, even in mining, BHP and others, companies will come up with something, but it's like their willingness to contribute that to the greater good. I'm just seeing that as a trend recently. And as we get more into renewables and sustainable energy, some point type solutions, even things like computer vision at the edge, or something that's quite innovative and so on. People want to get more eyeballs on it, seems like these days, and putting it out there to see if they can build a little ecosystem around a new technology. And we're kind of in the middle of that, from different companies wanting to make a reality, an ecosystem around a new technology, and looking to grow that. And I just see that being a strong part, and I think OSDU has kind of contributed to that, actually. With the willingness of Shell and Schlumberger to step into that initiative, and around the edges of that, there's a lot of good stuff going on. But I think we've probably got some perspective there with Shell's involvement in OSDU.
Thank you, Giacomo. Maybe you go next, and then we'll end it with Lee for the final word on this one. What's E&I point of view on that kind of stuff, commercializing your own products?
Yeah, we will love it. I think we have some good product to do it, but there is still room internally to be deployed. So my focus now, for at least the next 1.5 years, is to scale internally. Even if I see the potential and we are thinking about, but now we have mainly, let me say honestly, an inner focus.
Okay, Lee.
Yeah, thanks. I'd say we're definitely doing it, as in kind of trying. So I certainly wouldn't say that we're kind of commercializing everything as fast as we could, but I think we're definitely kind of dipping our toes in a few areas. And again, I mentioned the OAI earlier on, so that's kind of the Open AI Energy Initiative. So that's one vehicle that we've done really to try to see whether we can commercialize some of these things. I think the way for me, it's important just to kind of clarify that the intent of that as well, because I think clearly that there is kind of potential commercial upside, and you can kind of get new kind of revenue streams, which is something that as an industry, I think we need to be ever looking out for new unexpected types of revenue in the future, because our industry is changing anyway. But the way I've also looked at it, it makes our own internal capabilities stronger. So I mean, if we're able to truly say we're ready to commercialize something, I mean, we get feedback from other customers by doing that, and we have to make sure that our own products are up to standard. So it's an interesting kind of feedback loop, and I've had experience where once we've actually tried to commercialize something, we found that some external kind of third parties have actually taken our products and be able to deploy it faster than we've been able to deploy it ourselves. And so that actually get some natural internal tension to say, why is this asset done it ahead of our own? And so I think it brings tension, but generally the right type of tension. But to Giacomo's point, I think we haven't commercialized everything, and I think in some areas it's just because we do see that there's more value for our own assets in the shorter term, and we have to do that in other areas. There are a few areas that we've worked on which we do think are sort of commercially differentiating. And so then it's a trade-off, especially in things like the LNG and the trading side, where we've developed something and we truly feel it's adding unique value. Then it's a trade-off to see whether we keep it to ourselves or whether we commercialize it and at what point we do that.
I think most of us carry an Apple phone these days. I know I do. And the whole Apple apps has clearly opened the world to what the potential is if you just open it up for others to develop new ideas. And imagine a world where we could get past some of the licensing issues where seismic data was opened up. Shell says, we're not going to work Nigeria seismic data, but any of you retired geoscientists that are out there that really want to work the data, we'll pay you X dollars for any good idea you bring forward. And so there's a whole bunch of things that could evolve as an industry that may address our workforce issues as well.
And Al, I don't know whether you mentioned, sorry, but so we've actually tried that type as well. So there's for those that are interested, we have a kind of there's a company called X Studio that we're kind of supporting, and that is just that actually, where you're almost kind of turning into kind of game scenarios where we can post challenges online and having either startups or just individuals, either retired or not, to be able to sign up, join a community and try to solve some of those things. So it's happening. I think how successful they are, I think we're very early in the game, but it's a great idea that you say.
It's a great idea. Thank you. With the time we have left, you all are fairly advanced in your digital journeys, all three companies. What advice would you have for companies that are just getting started or early on in the digital transformation? What are the 4 or 5 words of wisdom or things that you would advise your counterparts if they were to call you today? And Lee, maybe I could start with you on that one.
Yeah, good question. I'd make sure you pay attention to the foundations. That's just so don't underestimate the importance of having just the basic data governance. So you pick things like your cloud provider to at least get the basics right. But then be business and outcome focused. I think when I first came into my role, we had about 1,800 different initiatives going on at the same time across our upstream business, and a big part of what I did is actually try to focus it again to Giacomo's point. So aim big, but start kind of manageable and start in the places where you think digital can have the biggest impact for you. Because again, to Michael and Giacomo's point, you can fall into the trap of trying to test everything everywhere. And when after 2 or 3 years worth of learning, we've actually realized that by focusing in on the big 5 or 6 locations and the big challenges those 5 or 6 locations have, you get that business buy-in so much more quickly.
Thank you. Giacomo, you want to add on to that one?
Yeah,
please.
I agree. I agree with Lee, and I will add again, I want to underline again, focus on free for big game. This is the first, and the second, build a balanced funnel between new ideas and ideas that go to scale, and don't be afraid to cancel and stop projects that are not going anywhere.
That's great. That is great advice. Because so many of these projects, as
everyone is in love with his own son or daughter. But
I can't tell you how many projects are personally started by the CEO, and it's amazing how people get behind that. Like the CEO really wants it, so we can't kill any project, and most of the time, as you all know, that's not the case. Michael, you want to give some advice as well, please?
Yeah, just layering on to the others. I think, if you want to start a new project, you have to, kill a current project. That's kind of, there's only so much bandwidth, right? So it's almost like when we start a new project, it's like, well, what are we going to not do to accommodate that? So I just totally agree with the being business focused. I think is the one piece of advice I would come back to that I was talking about earlier. So get a quick win, show the early benefit, show the near-term impact. But, you know, to Lee and Giacomo's point, also in the process, lay down some data and analytics pipe that's going to serve you well for the future, and set up a lab that behind the scenes, but, you know, come back to your management and show insights every couple of weeks to keep, you know, execs engaged, and keep really attract other people to your project. If you're winning, if you're showing some value, then, you know, the ecosystem around you starts to just grow. People like to jump onto projects that are successful. So yeah, I think that's, business focus, pay attention to foundations, as Lee put it, you know, lay the analytic pipe, prove yourself, get some quick wins, you know, list others into your project so that it's not all coming from your department. I think it's always a great success point for me when our data science team is doing something and then all these other people from other different parts of the company want to pile in on it. That's a sign of success. And yeah, I think Giacomo might have said it, but, you know, my version is, you know, in God we trust, but everybody else has to bring data and insights. You know, that's what creates value at the end of the day. You know, insights determine what, you know, gets done. And yeah, engage with partners and vendors. I think it's been a great theme of this discussion. You know, our CEO says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I think that's, you know, really wise. And, you know, you sort of learn that through various scars that you get along the way, and really appreciate our partnership with Shell and E&I and others. I think that's been a real part of our success. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael.